My name is PatricKxxLee, but on social media it's PatricKxxLee. The XX is silence. Please get it right, guys. I beg.
In 2017, South African hip-hop had a new face of the future. A skinny kid with pink hair, dark lyrics, and a sound that didn't belong anywhere in the country's rap scene. His name is PatricKxxLee. And for a moment, it looked like he was about to change everything. But a few years later, something strange happened. People started saying he fell off. Some said he disappeared. Some said he lost his momentum. But the truth is way more uncomfortable. Because the reality might actually be this. South African hip-hop didn't deserve PatricKxxLee. So let's talk.
The big hash, PatricKxxLee. I feel like you guys have done so much, you know what I'm saying, and pioneered a lot of shit and put out fire shit, but I feel like it doesn't really translate the way it should. And that's on the listener side. I don't think that's a thing to do with you.
Yeah, even people like Patrick and them, like, those are brews that really like paved the way for this shit.
For sure.
And it will be dope for brews like that to actually be seen, for the guys that actually, did this shit.
Before the new wave, before the SoundCloud kids, there was a moment when PatricKxxLee introduced himself to the world with a concept that was almost disturbing. His debut project, Diary of an Arsonist. But this wasn't just an edgy title, no. He once described dropping out of college to pursue music as the day he set his life on fire. And that idea became the entire theme of the project. Burning your old life down to build a new one.
Nah, man. I just gotta say it, bro. I'm not even gonna talk about this guy's rapping because I think I have multiple times. PatricKxxLee is probably one of the best producers we have had in South Africa, dog. And you know what's even more crazier? I can actually put him up there with Zuchi Coke Dope. And I know a lot of y'all are probably gonna fight me. Yeah, no, Zuchi, yeah. If you guys know Diary of an Arsonist, you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys know what I'm talking about, bro, because the production there, till today, that is timeless music. Diary of an Arsonist. If you're not tapped in, you better go read a book and tap into that shit, bro.
The music sounded different too, bro. It wasn't traditional South African hip-hop. It wasn't Kwaito influenced. It wasn't radio friendly. It was darker, more emotional, more chaotic. And for the younger generation online, that sound felt like freedom. By 2017 and 2018, South African hip-hop was starting to shift, bro. A new generation of artists was emerging online. Artists who didn't care about radio. Artists who didn't care about the traditional industry. Artists inspired by global internet rap culture. And one of those faces of this movement was PatricKxxLee. His aesthetic was different. His music was experimental. His image looked more like something from SoundCloud rap culture than traditional SA hip-hop. For Gen Z fans, he represented the future. But for the OGs, he represented everything they hated. This is where the tension started, because South African hip-hop at that time was still operated under old industry rules. Radio hits, traditional rap flows, commercial appeal. But PatricKxxLee wasn't making music for radio. He was making music for the internet, for the people. And that difference created a huge disconnection. A lot of people simply didn't get it. To them, he sounded too weird, too emotional, too experimental. But to a younger audience, he sounded like the future, bro.
Nah, bro. I don't understand why South Africa would count PatricKxxLee out, bro. It don't make sense to count PatricKxxLee out. This guy is probably one of the best vocalists we have in hip-hop. Man, I'm talking about this guy's vocal range. I'm talking about his producing. He probably made this beat himself. The talent here is unmatched. You can't compare anyone to PatricKxxLee. Nah, something like... Bro, how I pray for niggas to see this guy. How I pray.
Then something happened that changed everything. You see, in 2018, PatricKxxLee checked himself into rehab. He was dealing with depression and serious mental health struggles. And suddenly, the rising star of the new wave went silent. For many artists, this would have been the end. But for PatricKxxLee, this moment will become the foundation for one of the darkest projects in South African hip-hop.
Bro, one person I feel like is should be like is Patrick. Patrick deserves his flowers, dog. Patrick gave us like albums in SoundCloud, dog. If besides being generous, the albums were extremely good, bro. The albums were extremely. Go listen to Hollywood Boulevard, bro. If you know it from SoundCloud, Hollywood Boulevard will fucking. Bro, these songs are insane, bro. But I can't really like enforce people to go back. It was just like this video is like a checkpoint in our lives. What's here, man? We're gone now. We're grown, and I'm proud of everyone who was part of the era now. Cause there's so many changes, there's so much growth, there's so much experimentation, bruh. But some, obviously, it's decreased in quality.
You see, in 2019, he released an album called Nowhere Child. And this project wasn't just a typical rap album. It was basically the sound of someone documenting their mental collapse. The lyrics were brutally honest. Loneliness, isolation, depression, bro. Instead of hiding his struggles, he turned them into art. And that level of vulnerability was something South African hip-hop rarely saw at the time. But vulnerability doesn't always translate to commercial success, you know. While PatricKxxLee was rebuilding himself, the South African music scene kept moving. Trends changed, new artists emerged, and the new wave moment slowly faded. For some fans, it looked like PatricKxxLee had lost his momentum. People started saying things like, he fell off. But here is the truth most people ignore. He never actually stopped making music. He simply chose to go deeper into his own sound. Instead of chasing mainstream success, PatricKxxLee leaned even harder into experimentation. His sound became more niche, more artistic, more unpredictable, which meant something important. He wasn't trying to fit into South African hip-hop anymore. He was building his own lane. And that decision probably cost him mainstream visibility. But it preserved something far more important, his identity as an artist.
You know one thing I like about PatricKxxLee? Dog, this nigga never sounds the same on any jam. Name me 2 tracks by PatricKxxLee, right? And tell me they sound identical. Every track with PatricKxxLee is a new experience, bro. Every damn time this guy hops on a beat that he probably made, it's something new, bro. This guy, you cannot compare any song, dog, or him to any artist. Maybe the backing vocals, we can say it's like Travis Scott, but that's about it.
But somewhere along the way, a strange narrative started forming online. People began to say PatricKxxLee had a downfall. But this idea was mostly built on misunderstanding. Yes, he struggled with mental health. Yes, his mainstream visibility fluctuated. But the idea that he disappeared, that's simply not true. Even years later, PatricKxxLee was still active, bro. In 2014, he released a project called No Visa, a 3-track EP that reminds fans he was still there. And he even went on a No Visa tour across 7 South African cities, which proves something important. The core fan base never left, because for the people who truly understood his music, PatricKxxLee was never just another rapper. He was part of the movement. By 2025, media outlets were still acknowledging his influence. He was being cited as one of the artists who helped shape Gen Z hip-hop in SA. And when you look at the newer generation of artists today, you can still see pieces of his influence. The emotional vulnerability, the darker aesthetic, the internet-driven sound. Even if his name isn't always mentioned, the blueprint is there, bro. It's still there.
I know, bro. For me, as I said, man, and I've said this many times, PatricKxxLee started this wave. I'm not gonna lie, he's like one of the OGs of the underground, if you guys so call it, bro. You know, you guys better look at this guy as OG PatricKxxLee. I'm not even gonna cap, bro. His music was different before y'all started hopping onto the underground like y'all hopping on now, bro. No cap.
So maybe the real story isn't about a downfall. Maybe the real story is about timing. Because sometimes an artist appears before the culture is ready. Too experimental, too emotional, too different. And when that happens, the culture rejects them, only to realize years later that they were ahead of their time. So when people say PatricKxxLee fell off, maybe they're asking the wrong question. Maybe the real question should be this: did PatricKxxLee fail South African hip-hop, or did South African hip-hop fail him? Because sometimes the most important artists in a culture aren't the ones who dominate the charts. they are the ones who change the direction of the sound. And whether people realize it or not, PatricKxxLee might have done exactly that. But I want to know something. Do you think PatricKxxLee was ahead of his time, or do you think he actually lost his momentum? Because depending on how you look at it, his story might be one of the most misunderstood in SA hip-hop.
I think Nash is like the closest to my type for sure.
What about Nash is closest to your type?
Short and disfigured.
And Patrick is thick and masculine.
Short and disfigured is crazy.
Crazy combo.
Short and
Fat
disfigured.
ass.